Cloudinary is well known in the image space for giving both a great DX and a great UX. You can get images automatically resized and actually formatted the way you want for your browser. So whatever browser comes, it gets the image it needs. Now, Astro and Cloudinary have just combined to add what's called an Astro loader. Now, this uses Astro's new content layer, which is like an upgrade on content collections to allow you to pull in data from any data source. In this case, Cloudinary. They've written this image loader that allows you to quickly gather those in a content collection and then display those using their own image component. Now, on top of all that, Cloudinary gives you an upload widget where with one click, you can upload any images to your Cloudinary account. With Halloween just around the corner, I thought it'd be fun to create a little app for my kids where they could upload pictures of themselves in their outfits and their friends could do the same so they could see everyone's outfits automatically. We could do that really easily with these custom components that Cloudinary is going to give us. You ready? Let's jump in. Hey, what's up? My name is Chris and welcome to Coding in Public. All right, I've got this basic project set up. You can actually grab the code in the description. Just 3 things I want to point out. The first one is crucial. The other 2 are not, just kind of how I set it up. So the crucial one is you do need an SSR adapter of some point. So here I've got Netlify. You can also use Node or Vercel or any of the other ones available in Astro. You just want to make sure you have this set to server, or if you use hybrid mode, make sure any routes, especially your post route, have pre-render set to false. Basically, we need these endpoints to be dynamic and server-side. All right, finally, the other 2 things to point out is I'm using Tailwind, and I'm also using some ShadCN UI React components. So even though we're not going to ship any React to the client, I do need to install the React package so that way we can use those. All right, so those are just a couple of things to kind of note. You can see here that I don't have anything too much going on here, except for this heading and this little SVG that I grabbed off Pixabay. So let's go ahead and jump into the docs for Astro Cloudinary. And if we click Get Started, it's going to tell us to do a few things. So we need to, first of all, install Cloudinary, and then also Astro Cloudinary. Now we're going to install Cloudinary because we're going to use that in a second. Right now, technically, all we have to do is Astro Cloudinary, but let's just do them both to get them both over with. All right, cool. We got that up and running. Let's go ahead and npm run dev that, and we should be set to go. Next, I need to create a .env file. We're going to add 3 different things. 2 of them will be public keys. They're prefixed with public underscore. That means we can access them client side. So I'm going to go ahead and come over here. The other one is a secret, so it does not have that. So I'm just going to add this right here. It'll be .env. This is just at the base root of my project. So I'll close this down and just go ahead and copy these things over. We need this, and we also need both of these as well. Now we need to actually grab these from Cloudinary. So I've got my Cloudinary account open over here. You can create one for free. The name is just whatever you got right here. So this is just on my dashboard, and you can see mine is just called Coding in Public. Now to actually create an API key, I need to go to my settings, which you can find down this way, and then I'll go up to API. So right here, API keys. And then we're just going to generate a new API key. Now you'll need to verify your password first. So I'll go ahead and do that. And then it just generated this new API. So first of all, the public API key, I can just grab this and copy and paste it right here. And then finally, we'll also need this secret. Now, again, remember these are prefixed with public, which means we can access them client side. This one is not. So Vite will not let us do this, which is a nice little safety. Now, you do not want to show this to anyone. I'm going to show it to you because I'm going to delete it in like 2 seconds. If you see this, you can actually access somebody's account. So there's mine for now, but again, I'll delete it before I post this video. Okay, so now we've got everything set up we need to get started. Let me jump back over this way. If I scroll down here, you'll notice that what it's going to do is give me a button just like this where I can upload directly to my bucket. Just like this, let's go ahead and grab this right here. And I'm going to come just below the header. Let's add a little section that'll be grid with gap of 2. And that's just some Tailwind classes to space stuff out. And then I'm going to go ahead and add this upload widget. Now I need to actually import this as well up top. So let's go ahead and do that. And if I come back over here, you're going to see that we should have a button right here. All right, now it's yelling at us here. I think I just need to restart the server. Let's get this back up and running. And I do actually need to provide an upload preset, but I don't think that will cause the error. Yeah, there we go. So now we've got the button right here. We should be set to go. Now there's basically 2 ways you can upload. Number 1, you can do what's called an unsigned upload. That would be less secure because basically anybody can upload as long as they have your preset name. Now where you get that, I'm going to jump back over this way. Under upload presets, you can create a preset that is set to unsigned. Now I don't have that right now, so I would use this like ML default right here, but again, it's going to have to be signed. So I won't be able to upload without the second way of doing this, which is if I come back over here, you'll see we've got a signed option. Now the signed option is more secure because essentially you're going to hit a post endpoint that then we'll have to check against your private and public keys to make sure you can actually upload on your behalf to your Cloudinary account. Now the way I've got this project set up right now, I don't have authentication anywhere. So basically if I publish this to the web, anybody who uses my site can actually upload. So that's another thing you'll need to think through is how you want to scope that. Right now, this is just a simple little project to show you how to upload and how to display images. So I'm not setting up auth or anything like that, but you'd probably want to do that in your case. So you'll see what I have to do here is provide what's called a signature endpoint. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then you have to point this to some kind of API route. Now we could use something like Astro's actions if we wanted to. However, they give us an actual API route. So I'm just going to use that to save us a little bit of time. So let me come over here and we're going to point this to where they're suggesting here, which is API sign Cloudinary params. So let's go ahead and do that. And what we're going to do is then create this endpoint right over here. So under pages, let's see right here, I'm going to create a new folder called API. And then inside here, we're going to have Cloudinary params like this .ts. Now, I don't actually need the API on the front of that. That's what the folder was for. And now what I'm going to do is just take all of this and paste it directly in here. Now, we shouldn't have to change anything here, but I do want to point out a couple of items. Number one, we installed Cloudinary earlier. That's so that we could actually use this. And there's a config we're passing on that grabs all the things we set in that env file. We're also setting this to pre-render false. Now we happen to have our entire site server-side rendered, so we don't need to do that here, but I'm going to leave it in here just because if you happen to have it set to hybrid, you want to make sure that this particular route is server-side rendered. Now we've got a post endpoint defined where we're getting a little helper from Astro for type safety. And what we're doing is grabbing from the body the parameters to sign and then passing this along to our API request. Then we're just going to return basically the success of that from this JSON response right here. Okay, so now that we've got that set and ready to go, I want to do one more thing, and that is I want to use my own custom button. So this comes from components UI button, and I've gone ahead and added that in there. So if I come back over here, there we go right here. If I click this, this now allows me to upload any image I want. Now I'm going to actually grab one from off screen here and just drag it in here, and it should upload that. And once it's done uploading it, I should get a success message. So just like that, you see I get a little check right here, and I can now say done. Now this will actually be uploaded, and if I jump back over this way, we should be able to check this out by looking at our assets. And if I jump right inside here, you'll notice that here it is right here. Now by default, it's just going to do it to the general bucket. You can see that that's what it's done. So it's not in any kind of special folder or anything like that, has no tags applied or anything. So I want to actually add some more customization to this upload to make sure that it goes exactly where I want it to go. Now, just a couple of notes here. You can actually grab events off of this and, basically respond to that. So if you want to do that, you're welcome to, and I'll leave the documentation here for you. What we're going to do is add a couple of other customizations to this upload widget. Now we can do that with an options object, and there are a bunch of things we can pass in here. I want to pass in a folder. Now what I'm going to do is pass this the folder Halloween. Now, I don't actually have this created, but it will create it if it is not there. All right. So if it's not there, it'll go ahead and create it for you. Next, I want to say that I only want images here. So we're going to say resource type, and I just want to accept images. And then finally, I want to set a max image file size. So in other words, I don't want things too big. So let's set something like, I don't know, what is that? 2.5 million bytes, something like that, which I think if I did all this right, should be like 2.4-ish megabytes. So that's kind of the biggest size I want to take in here. So let's go ahead and do that again. I'm going to come back over this way. We're going to upload, and I'm going to jump over here. I'm actually just going to grab the exact same image and upload it for us. And now it's going to upload it into my Halloween folder. So let's go ahead and click done. And now if I jump back over here, you're going to see that I should have a folder. This folder is called Halloween. And inside here, I have just my one asset. Okay, cool. So I'm actually uploading to a specific spot. Actually, I'm setting a max file size. The next thing I want to do is display this. Now to do this, we're going to set an experimental feature that is coming in Astro 5. So if you're already using Astro 5, you may not need to set this. But what I'm going to do is jump over here into my Astro config, and we're going to make sure we set up experimental like this. And then this is just an object that can take a bunch of different options. The one we want to do is this content layer. Now, a content layer is essentially an expansion on the idea of content collections. And if you're familiar with the concept of content collections, you could have local markdown or MDX or JSON or YAML files here that you could then use to build your site, whether that was SSR or SSG. In Astro 5, they're extending that to allow you to have any data from anywhere, including something like Cloudinary. And Cloudinary has actually written a loader that makes this really, really easy. So let's come in here. I'm going to create a new folder called content. And then inside here, we're going to have a file called config.ts. I'm going to close this down and jump back over to the Cloudinary documentation, because what we're going to do is want to get images. So let me scroll down this way. This loader right here is what we're looking at. So just like with the kind of old version of content collections, you have to export a const called collections. And then each of the collections has a name. In this case, it's called assets. Now, collections now use these things called loaders, and Cloudinary has actually written one to make this really easy, although you can write your own as well. But we don't need to do a bunch of stuff. All we're going to do is copy this and paste it. That's it. Now, since I've already set those env variables, this assets loader will look and find those and then use them to actually query all that data. Now, I can set a limit. In this case, I'm not going to do that. And I can also set a folder. We called ours Halloween. Now, if I jump over here, you'll see that you can get assets from a collection just like you would any other content collection. You're just going to await the collection name. In this case, we've called it assets. I'm going to call this something like Halloween pics or something like that, just to make it a little bit more descriptive. So up top here, let's go ahead and grab those. We'll say const Halloween pics equals await get collection. We're going to get this from Halloween pics. All right, hopefully we did that correctly. Let's go ahead and console log this and jump back over this way. Okay, cool. So I can actually loop through these now and display them down below. So let's do that. I'm actually going to come over here. Let's add a little ARIA label just to make sure this is clear. And then down below, we'll do the same thing. We'll have another section, and this will say ARIA label, Halloween pictures. Now down here, I'm going to add two things. First of all, we'll add an H2 called best Halloween images. And then I'm also going to add a div here that's just going to allow us to set these cards in kind of their own image sections. So let's now go ahead and loop over our Halloween images. So these Halloween pics.map, and I'm just going to loop over each one and grab the data from it. Now for each of these, I'm just going to return a card. And this card is another component I have right here. So for each individual image, we should have something in here. So let's go ahead and just do image like that. And there you see both of them show up. And just like before, we probably want a little bit of space here. So I'm going to add some classes here. We'll just say grid gap 2, just to give us a little bit more space between the heading and everything else. Okay, now inside these cards, I now want to use a third item from Cloudinary, and that would be the actual image itself. Now, of course, you can use images in Astro. There's an image helper as well. This gives you some extra superpowers though, because it's going to tap into all the API capabilities of Cloudinary. So let me come up top here. You're going to see that what we've got is this CDL image. So with the basic usage, you'll notice all I have to do is use this instead of Astro's image component. I can pass in things like the width and the height and alt and give it sizes, and it will actually dynamically generate this for us. Now, one of the cool things is when you pass it this public ID, it's going to choose the right image type based on the browser that is coming to fetch that image. So you always get the most optimized image without having to do anything. So you'll get like an AVIF or a WebP, and I'll show you that here in a second. So let's go ahead and grab this right here. We're just going to drop this in here, and then let's go ahead and import this as well. This is from Astro Cloudinary. Do we have anything yet? Yeah, we do. So let's go ahead and grab this CLD image just like that. All right, so now down this way, what we're going to do is pass in the public ID, but we're going to get this from the data itself. So right here, we're going to take the data dot, and we're going to grab the public ID. Now we've actually got the width as well coming along. So I can say data dot, and I should have the width of the actual asset. Same thing for height. We'll do data.height. Now for the alt, I actually don't have anything for these yet, so we're just going to leave that alone for now. So for now, let's go ahead and save this and see what we've got. So if we come over here, we should have, it looks like a couple of images coming in. There we go. All right, so both of these showing up. So if I come over here and we look at the network tab right here, and let me just pull this up and look at image, and you'll see that I'm getting an AVIF, even though I didn't set this as an AVIF. That's because I'm using the CLD image component. It's actually going to determine what's the best image type for my particular browser and then pull that exact thing in. Now, right now it's trying to center it, and you can see it's doing a pretty good job, but I can actually give it a little bit more help. So let's use the crop option, crop like this, and I can go ahead and pass it and say, hey, what I want you to do is crop the image to fit in my particular size I have here. The type of crop I'm going to use is called auto. This uses AI to generate the perfect crop. And then I want to do this off the source image rather than kind of the final image I'm getting here. All right, so it's going to use the source image, crop it, ideally to like show the face or whatever at the center of the photo. In this case, it looks just about the same, but hopefully that makes sense. So we've used 3 items from Cloudinary to make this super easy. Number 1, if I scroll back up here, this upload widget allows us to point to an API endpoint that then sends a signed image up to a particular folder, only images and only of this size or less. Secondly, we're going to use the new content layer. That allows us to then pass in a loader. And again, Astro is going to give us this. It's called CLD assets loader. I'm going to say, only give me stuff from this Halloween folder. And now this will be this collection called Halloween pics. Even though it's a remote data source, Astro can pull that in content collections. And here's the cool thing. I actually can hover over this and see exactly what I'm going to get back. All this comes typed for me by default because this loader gives me all that data. But then thirdly, what we're using is the Cloudinary CLD image. This allows us to use the default width and height to kind of set this and then crop it automatically, give us the correct data type. All this comes out of the box. This is what I love about Cloudinary. Now, you can actually pass in several sizes as well. If you want to determine those, for right now, I'm going to leave that alone, but you can check that out in their docs. This allows you to send just the right size image rather than just cropping it or moving it down, making it look smaller with CSS. You're actually sending in the actual image size you need. Now, let me change one thing in styling, and then let's go ahead and add some more images. So if I come back up top here to my header, I've got this image right here. Let's go ahead and make sure that this is like a Z index of like 10, so it's behind everything. There we go. All right. Now, finally, let's go ahead and upload a bunch more. So I'm going to click upload. I'm going to grab a bunch of these images and just add them directly in here. Now, these are all posting to an API endpoint. I either grab these off Unsplash or like had AI generate some weird looking images of kids. And just like that, these should pull in for me. Now, let me actually jump up here before we do too much more. And we'll see that all those images were correct. They all came in here. So now let's go ahead and come back over this way, and I'm going to refresh. And there you see they're already being pulled in. I'm still not exactly sure why I've got 2 of these coming in, but either way, it's working for us. We got all the other ones coming in for us. I do want to mention just one more thing about the upload widget. So if I come back over here, we've got the upload widget. You'll notice that we can get actual events from here. So let's go ahead and see what those might look like. So here's one example here where we're getting this success, and I can decide what to do at that point. So let me go ahead and add an ID so I can access this. We'll use the same ID they did. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab this entire script tag like this, and let's just drop this somewhere here. So how about right here? Okay, so we should actually get back. Whenever we get the success event, we should be able to log out the detail. Now we can use this to like hard refresh the page. Because I'm using server-side rendering by default, when I upload an image, I can hard refresh once that's been successful, and it should actually load back in that data. So let's come back over this way. I'm going to go ahead and open up the console, and let's pull this down and make sure we can actually see what's going on, and let's upload another image. Now I'm just going to grab a little image like this just to make sure I can see it easily. And now you'll notice I get this event success. So when I get this event success, I should be able to hard refresh the page. So what I'm going to do is come over here and just say that when I get this, because it should only fire when it's successful, I can say just window.location.reload. There are, of course, other ways to handle that as well. But if I come back over here, let's go ahead and add this right here. And as soon as I do so, drag it in here, it should reload automatically for me. All right, let's close this down. And there we go. I got my 2 images that have pulled in. So just like that, we've created a little site that can upload images dynamically and then display them using Cloudinary's image component. Okay, last thing you can see here, I've got some of these images being cut off just because of the way I'm using their default width and height. So let's come up here. Instead of doing that, let's set this to something like 300 and 300. That way they're gonna, instead of using their default height, they'll try to stretch to that size. Now, because I'm using the smart cropping, it's gonna try to crop the image. So that way it shows the exact kind of center of the image, or usually it's gonna try to crop 4 faces. All right, that way, however people upload their images, I'll go ahead and get a good smart crop, and the width and height will be set automatically. Cloudinary and Astro make an awesome team. Now, like I mentioned earlier, this is a sponsored video by Cloudinary, but I've used Cloudinary myself for many years, and I've long wanted to do a video on them. I just never got around to it until they finally asked me to play around with this new Astro and Cloudinary configuration, which is like a match made in heaven. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. I'll catch you in the next one. Happy coding.